Today we are going to be discussing how to start SOP, um, statement of purpose. We all know by now that whenever you are making application for study abroad, you need SOP, and SOP is just an essay you write to show that you are prepared for the studies, and it shows your preparations and things you want to do and how you wish to do them. All right. So the main thing in SOP is that statement of purpose. What's your motivation? What's your intent? What do you want to do? Tell us. We don't know. Beyond your CV, beyond your transcripts. Okay, you are interested in public health. You want to study epidemiology. Why? All right. So they want to understand why you want to study that particular course. So that is statement of purpose. In some schools, they call it motivation letter. All right. If they ask you to write motivation letter, it is just the same thing as statement of purpose. However, in some schools, they call it personal statement. All right. Some schools call it personal statement. Nevertheless, the colloquial meaning of personal statement, which is the conventional meaning all of us know, is that personal statement is not really the same with statement of purpose. So I need to explain the difference. Personal statement is tell us about yourself, things that happened to you and that shaped your understanding of science, that shaped your understanding of life, that shaped your behavior, that shaped your progress in life so far. All right, that is your personal statement. It's just like tell us, let us know you, personal things that happen to you. For instance, if you want to write personal statement and let's say you didn't make first class, and you can start to write that probably in your second year in the school, you had an accident that you were hospitalized in the hospital and you couldn't maybe meet up with some classes, and that is why you didn't meet up with certain things in your life. You can also express maybe one thing that happened to your dad or that happened to your mom or something that shaped you to understand that honesty is very important in life, or what made you to become so interested in being giving back to the society. Maybe when you were growing up, someone died in your environment because there is no hospital. That's why you went ahead to study this particular course. And your main motivation is to give back to the society. So you can bring in anything that has to do with you as a person, personal statement. All right, that is personal statement. You don't confuse it with statement of purpose. Statement of purpose have little to do with your person. It has more to do with your academic progress, your studies, your prospects, the potentials and skills you have, and less about yourself, about your morality, about your religion, about the number of kids in your family, about your mom, and maybe your health challenges and stuff like that. Statement of purpose don't really want you to highlight them, okay? But personal statement want you to highlight them. Now, in some schools, they can ask you to write two of them separately. For instance, when I made my application to Tulane University, they asked us to write three kinds of statements. One of them is statement of purpose. The other one is personal statement. Then they had another one they call leadership statements. Okay, so leadership statement, tell us about leadership, how influential you were in the community. Maybe you were leading outreaches and sensitization and stuff like that. You can write about them. You were president of your department association, or you were president in your church. You were leading maybe a group of nurses in Accra, or you were leading anything, just your leadership experiences and things you learned from them. Then there's another statement that people write when making an application. One of them is called diversity statement. Tell us how you can live with people who are not from your place, people who don't have the same religion with you, people who don't share the same belief, the same background, the same culture. Okay, so how are you going to handle them? They call it diversity statement or inclusion statement. I've talked about letter of intent. If you are asked to write letter of intent, it is the same as letter of motivation. And I said that letter of intent is just another word for statement of purpose. All right. So in that umbrella called statement of purpose, you have, depending on the way they want to call it, they can call it motivation letter, motivation statement, statement of purpose, um, statement of intent, research intent. It is different from research proposal. Research intent is different from research proposal. Research proposal is an academic term for things you want to research on. It is specific and it doesn't have to do, you don't need to highlight your skills whenever you are writing research proposal. You are going to work on a particular research, tell them why that research is significant, tell them you need to give a background, you need to give literature. These are things that has been done, and this is why I want to do this research. Then you discuss the methodology you are going to use, the methods you are going to use now, and the possible limitations, and how you are going to disseminate that research. So that is research proposal. I believe Dorcas is going to explain that to you guys in detail. Especially if you are going to apply for PhD, some schools will ask you to submit that, especially if you are in the natural sciences. I made application to geography department, University of Alabama, PhD. They asked me to submit research proposal. If you are going to the UK for PhD, they usually ask you to submit research proposal. If it is PhD, because PhD in UK, sometimes they fund it. It is fully funded sometimes. They want you to submit research proposal. It is different from statement of purpose. So having said all this, I want us to concentrate on statement of purpose. And I can tell you, every application you are going to make, you must submit statement of purpose. Even if you didn't submit others, statement of purpose is their chief, is the one everybody wants to know, because we want to know you, your background, your skills, your potential, experiences you've passed through, and how those things have built you into someone that can conduct research with us. You know what I mean? So the most important aspect of a statement of purpose is the beginning aspect, how you begin, how do you start? That's the most important, because truth of the matter, if you are reading anything on social media, for instance, you want to read a post and the first line is not telling you something important, you just skip it. You just read the first line. Maybe in the first line, somebody will say 3 women died in China. I don't care. You scroll and go. You don't care. But if they say maybe 25 scholarship awarded to African students in China, maybe it is of interest to you. That first line matters a lot, and how you start a first line of every statement is critical. So they usually look at your first line, and if it's interesting, which I encourage you to make it interesting, the person is born to read further, because these guys are going to read. If the application is very competitive, they're going to read about 50 to 60. Okay, so if they are going to read about 50 to 60, they will see a lot of writings that are uninteresting. So once they start reading it and it's not making any sense, they just flip it. And that's the truth, because nobody have time to read boring SOPs first. And if your SOP is like looking like boring, it shows maybe this person is not really ready for what they want to do. All right. So let's see how you can start. I want to sample your major. What do you want to do? the kind of course you are applying to. Can you write it in the comment section? Are you going for public health? Are you going for mechanical engineering? Are you going for environmental? Just write it in the comment section so I can use it as an example. Write it in the comment section so we can use it as example. Okay, we have PhD bioinformatics. PhD bioinformatics. We have PhD in public health. Oh, we have not only public health people, they're here today. So all of you are in the same field, public health. All right. So I'm going to use public health as an example. Entrepreneur. Let's get public health. All right. All right, so let me share my screen. I think we need to first start with public health. Later we can now discuss entrepreneurial business and all that. Because the first thing you want to ask yourself, why do I want to study public health? Maybe you have reasons in your heart, you want to study public health because you want to care for people, or you want to understand how socioeconomic factors can influence health, or maybe you are interested in mental health, drug use, or behaviors that make people to go into drug abuse, or you are interested in the distribution of hospitals and how maybe environmental injustice is affecting the health of people. Because if you notice, most dump sites are located in poor neighborhood. Most dump site, you don't go to the capital city of Accra, close to the governor's lodge, and you see a dump site, or you see where they're dumping refuse. No, they locate them close to the poor people. So you can actually try to look at health policies that can help these people from this rural environment to care for themselves. And you can argue and say that these people are suffering because our policies are targeting them. This is environmental injustice. Okay, so that is also, it has some health implication for someone who is going to, let's say you are going for health policy. Someone who is looking at bioinformatics can look at, there's not enough data to track how maybe the spreading of a particular disease or COVID-19 distribution. That time they were distributing ventilators and stuff like that. You want to create a very robust model or database that can track how those ventilators are distributed, or you want to track how HIV patients are getting treatment and stuff like that, depending on the kind of thing you want to do. But there must be a goal in mind. There must be a goal in mind when you start writing your SOP. Now, having that goal in mind, you need to communicate it in a good way. So I'm going to share my screen and show us something. All right. So because this, I'm sharing my screen and it's not going to be the biggest, I encourage you to zoom it a little bit from your phone or from your laptop so you can see what I'm doing. But I think I can magnify it a little bit so you can see it well. All right, so I started this SOP that I did, and it is basically for someone who is going for, I call that person Beatrice, okay, ARAM. And the person is going for public health, all right? Now, but they studied nursing science. She studied nursing science. So that's my assumption. Someone who is also going for, let's say you are going for bioinformatics, but you studied microbiology. That's another assumption. So the way someone that studied, let's say you are a medical doctor in Nigeria and you want to go to US to study public health, the way you start your SOP should have some medical background different from the way, let's say somebody from my background, which is geography, they study geography. Now they want to go and study public health policy. The way they will start it is not the same way someone who had health background is going to start it. All right. So in this case, I'm going to start with a story. Sometimes you can start SOP with a story. You can start SOP with a scenario. You can start SOP with something that happened to you as a person. Let it have some personal personal appeal to what you are saying. All right. So you can also start SOP with a global phenomenon. So I'm going to start both from global phenomenon and personal story. So in this case, I started this way. My passion for medical sciences came through a dramatic scene. My mother woke me up one day at about 4:30 a.m. Everyone in the family was awake. At that time, that was very early in the morning. The radio station announced the outbreak of a strange disease and rumors that people should take birth. This is what it should be. Like people should take birth, not give birth. People should bathe, right? People should bathe with salt water. People should bathe in salt water to avoid getting infested. Okay, so now this is a situation that happened in 2014 when Ebola disease came and people were bathing with salt water in Nigeria. All right, they were bathing with salt water so that they can escape Ebola infection. Now, you can create a story around that to say that is how you got interested in public health, because this is a misinformation. People are getting misinformed that if they take baths with salt water, they are going to escape Ebola. And a lot of people were hospitalized, and this brought your attention that, oh my God, how can I help people so that the health communication aspect, the information given out to people, this is even good for someone going for bioinformatics because it has to do with the information, the sharing, the data aspect of it. Okay. So I said I was scared for my life. It was the Ebola pandemic, and some of my friends who took this birth were with hypersaline water were hospitalized. This scenario created a deep passion in my heart to care for the sick and ensure that accurate health information is disseminated, and also to understand the dynamics of infectious diseases. So I want to understand how Ebola spread. I want to understand how those diseases infect people. Now, can you see that we started with a story, we knitted it with our family, we knitted it with an impact. We also went ahead to say that this thing helped me to get interested in starting my career in the health profession. All right. So I now said my innate desire to care for people propelled me to enroll in a nursing assistantship position at this school. Then you started to talk about what you did. You understand? So once you start, you've given a background, what got you interested. For me, I usually start with what got me interested, what got you interested in the field. Then you now move to what you've done in your undergraduates, in your background, how you got to that level. Okay, so this is one way to start an SOP. But I want to show you another way. This is another SOP. This is another SOP. But this kind of SOP is mostly focusing on community health and how socioeconomic situations can affect public health. Now, can you see how I started this particular one? I say President Barack Obama on the 50th anniversary of war against poverty stated, a person's zip code should not determine their health outcome. This is a statement by Barack Obama in 2014 during the 50th anniversary of war against poverty. He said that where you live should not determine your health outcome. While the statement may sound like it is political, we have enough evidence that shows that where a person lives can affect their health. And children who are born in poor neighborhoods are more likely to stay poor as adults. They attend underfunded schools, they eat unhealthy food, and they may end up sick and poor adults. Okay, so we now say that the environment has critical impact on health outcome. So my upbringing in a rural village in Nigeria gave me a first-hand experience on how these environmental factors can influence health. Now, this is the way I started this SOP. One thing you can learn from this thing is I quoted a popular person. I quoted a popular statement that has to do with health. Okay, you can quote Mother Teresa's statement. You can look at what did Mother Teresa say about health. You can Google that online. It can come up. Mother Teresa may say that we are all one. The health of one person should also affect the other person. You can start with that Mother Teresa statement to start making your argument. Someone can also start by saying, COVID-19 has shown us that we are all connected because somebody contracted COVID, I be contracted in China. And before we know what's up, COVID is already in the US, COVID is already in Africa, COVID circulated across the world. That is to show us that any health challenge happening at a particular place is a global challenge. It's a global public health concern. You can start with that, okay? So you can start with a quotation, popular quotation that relates to what you are doing. Don't go and pick one quotation from, let's say, you pick quotation from Albert Einstein. Apple falling does not affect the gravity of something. That doesn't make any sense to what you want to do, okay? So find a quote. I just showed you that you can start with a quote, then make little arguments that why that quote is important, then link it to yourself. It is just about skill, all right? It is just your skill. So I now said my upbringing in rural community in Nigeria showed me environmental factors can influence health. In my community, many youth were delinquent because it's a rural community and they're poor, and teenage pregnancy was rampant and all that. However, something happened to me. This is where I am now. I say, however, I attended a summer holiday in Abuja, which is the capital city of Nigeria. And I noticed a sharp contrast between Abuja and my rural community. It now showed me that, oh my God, there is a connection between, the urban area. They were not having the kind of teenage pregnancy we were having. They were not having the armed robberies and the kind of diseases we had. It was a very clear contrast for me. However, when I read a newspaper, I stumbled on a newspaper that discussed the connection of social and physical environment on health variables. And this propelled me to dedicate my life to understand the environmental properties that affect health. Okay, my desire is to play frontline roles in solving health disparities and advocating for health equity in marginalized communities. This is why I am applying for the Masters in Public Health and Masters in Public Health and Environmental Practices. Now, if you notice something, this guy has already said their main goal, the main thing they want to do with their life, the main thing they want to do after studies. They want to play some important roles in advocating for health equities, solving health disparities in marginalized communities. This can be your research interest, but you've already highlighted it in your writing. Another way to start SOP, I'm going to show you that. All right, so even though I wrote this for agriculture, I also think it's going to help us for someone who can reverse engineer it for public health or for all those other things you want to do. Now, this started with a question. I started this with a question. Are we really hungry, or do we not have equitable food distribution? It's a question that I often ask myself whenever I read about reports of hunger and malnutrition. Maybe someone is going to a PhD in nutrition, you can start your quote like this, or you want to understand the distribution of food and its impact on health, or any kind of thing that has to do with nutrition or health or maybe malnutrition or stuff like that. Are we hungry on earth? We are not hungry. Humans are not hungry, just that we are wasting food because we have enough food that can feed everybody on earth. People should not be suffering from malnutrition. But what we have is some people are obese, they eat a lot of food, while some people are so hungry, some people have kwashiorkor, they couldn't even afford their own food. So we have issue of distribution and not issue of inadequate food. So you now begin to make arguments. Now, can you see the argument we made here? He said, this is the question I often ask myself anytime I see news or reports that about hunger and malnutrition. According to the Food and Agricultural Organization, about 40% of food production ends up as waste. Our world is grappling with the paradox of abundance and scarcity. We have a paradox of abundance and scarcity. Why some people are hungry, the other guys are full. In fact, if you open social media, everybody is trying to train. They are going to gym. What are they going to gym for? Because they want to keep fit. They want to burn the food they've eaten. Why some people don't even have enough energy to walk? Okay, so this intensified the need for addressing global food insecurity and the environmental degradation that has been pronounced. As our media is inundated with an abundance of fitness content, a significant portion of the global population continues to suffer from food insecurity. This underscores the critical importance of sustainable food production. So, but this guy is talking about food production because they're in agriculture. But you can also look at it from the perspective of obesity. You can look at it from perspective of cardiovascular diseases, that people are not exercising enough because they eat and they just sit at home. So you want to understand maybe incentives and systems that can make people to become more mobile, anything you want to do, but just find a way to ask questions, find a way to be creative in your writing. Okay, so we've discussed that you can start by a scenario, you can start by quoting a popular person, you can start by asking a question and arguing about that question. Now, the next way you can also start is by going straight to the point. All right, you can go straight to the point. Like, this is why I want to do this. This is my interest. But even though this write-up is not for public health, but I believe everyone here can reverse engineer it. You just need to understand how those things work. Then you can reverse it and put it in your own field. So this starting SOP says, my interest in exploring the impact of lingua franca and the politics of language imposition was sparked by my elder brother's experience. Despite excelling in all his courses, which were taught and assessed in English, he was unable to gain admission to the university because he did not receive a passing grade in English language. This made me to question whether language classes were testing communication skills or mere technicalities. Okay, you have a brother who couldn't go to the university because he failed English language, but he passed physics, he passed mathematics, he passed every other thing. But somebody told him that you cannot go ahead and study just because you failed English. So this guy is saying, are we really testing for communication with English language, or somebody is imposing English on us as a limitation? Because this guy wants to go and study English language and language of studies, and he's going for linguistics. That's why we are starting this way. But someone can also look at it from another dimension, maybe in public health. You can look at it from another dimension. Look at a particular situation that happened or a scenario. Remember, this particular one went straight to the point. My interest in this started when my brother had this issue. For instance, I started an SOP last time. Somebody is going for a master in environmental science. He said his interest in environmental science started when his dad was coming back from work one day. He didn't know, and it was raining, so he didn't know that the gutter was there, because once it rains, a lot of water will fill the gutter. So he didn't know that this thing is not just an ordinary ground. So he walked into the gutter and he missed his step. I mean, the water carried him and the dad nearly drowned. All right. So this is why he got interested in urban planning. He wants to make sure that every community or every city is planned so well that people are not going to get involved in such incidents again. Now, what am I trying to say? You can start it by expressing the exact thing that brought you and why you got interested. Create a little scenario if it is necessary. And I can tell you there are 20,000, 4,000 scenarios that you can always create in your head. You can always create those scenarios, okay? So this made me to question my curiosity heightened when I read in a newspaper. Can you see that I try to bring in newspaper? I try to bring in, like, you watched the news, you try to bring in, or you went to a seminar. These are things that show that you were not a dull student. You were making some personal research. Maybe you can say you went to a seminar. They organized a health outreach in your community. Someone who is going for geology will say, I got interested in groundwater when the first borehole was sunk in my community. Oh my God, if you are from Ghana, you won't understand, because in Nigeria, we sink our own borehole. We create our own borehole. We have what we call generator. So somebody in Nigeria can say, I got interested in electrical engineering when my village had light for the first time. Okay. And I was amazed how these bulbs can generate light for us, that kind of thing. So your personal challenge in your community can be a motivation. So they sank a borehole in my community. That got me interested. How on earth did they have water? How on earth is water underground? So I begin to get interested and I asked questions. They told me that there are water everywhere on ground. And this got me interested to understand how this groundwater behave and how we can exploit it to solve the issues of water scarcity. Because 2 billion people across the world are suffering water scarcity. Okay, water scarcity, and when people lack water, it also has some public health implication because they will get involved in unhygienic lifestyle. Without good water, there's nothing like sanitation. They will go to the toilet and they don't have enough water to flush it, and they don't have enough water to wash their food. They don't have enough water to bathe. So in that case, it has some public health implication. So someone can also go through that route. So I'm saying you need to be creative. You need to think outside the box. Do not go online and ask ChatGPT to write anything for you, because ChatGPT is not a human being. It's going to write the intricate studies and the intricate and the tapestry of studying. It doesn't make sense. Anybody who reads will know that you are not writing this thing from your head. Okay, so create a scenario and write it in a way that makes sense. All right, so I'm going to show you one more way of writing those. Now, still part of the whole thing we talked about, but this particular one is going for environmental sciences. It says, my upbringing in an estuarial environment, the place where River Niger and Atlantic Ocean met, this exposed me to the complex effects of climate change. Okay, so the effect of climate change and anthropogenic activities on terrestrial communities. So climate change and borehole and oil company mining and all those things affected our community. So my community grapbles with floods that alter daily activities and disrupt critical infrastructure, and this incurred substantial economic loss. Okay, so we move from poor waste management in my community to inefficient urban planning. Okay, the recurring challenges fueled my passion to understand environmental systems and actively engage in frontline efforts to provide solutions. I want to provide solutions. My passion is to understand the mechanisms of earth processes, the earth system, the interaction of human action, and all those climate change stuff, so that I can provide solution. This led me to study geosciences. Okay. In every one of them, you can also see the same line of thoughts is moving from one place to another. You are not copying anything. I didn't copy anything from this place and transfer it to this place. No, I moved from this place to the other place with different scenarios and different thoughts. I will encourage you to do that when you start your own right. Now, someone here is going for entrepreneurship. Usually when you go for entrepreneurship, you are looking at management, you are looking at innovation, you are looking at strategy, you are looking at human resources management and stuff like that. So in that case, the way you are going to start your own is not about solving human problems. You are going to solve business problem. All right. So let's look at one SOP that has to do with solving business problem. This is how we started it. We said, with 5 years of experience as a project manager at Dankoro Commercial Ventures, located at Apapa Wharf, the largest seaport in Africa, I believe my understanding of logistics and procurement was comprehensive. I have 5 years experience, and I thought my experience, I'm working at the largest seaport in West Africa, in Nigeria. And I thought my understanding is enough. But when COVID-19 pandemic came, it showed my gaps in knowledge. It shows that I can't even take care of logistic solution when it doesn't have to do with, during the lockdown, people were not moving from place to place, but I still need to move goods from place to place. So I found it difficult to manage those people and manage the programs and the projects we have. Okay, so I say I found myself unprepared for the challenges. In response, I enrolled in an online mentorship program to enhance my skills in data-driven technologies for supply chain management. Child of God, whether you enroll or not, you just need to find a way to make what you are writing look critical and look better. Okay, do not lie. For instance, someone who is in entrepreneurship and you're a manager, and you found it difficult to lead your organization during COVID-19, and you called some people, you talked to your mentors, you talked to people abroad, you talked to your managers, you can write about it, okay? But for this guy, he enrolled in an online program where he learned how to use data-driven technologies for supply chain management and stuff like that. So this experience ignited a passion for him to gain more comprehensive understanding of modern logistics and supply chain, especially in the face of changing narrative, and the landscape of operation is changing because COVID-19, something like COVID-19 can happen again. Nobody was prepared. But if he has access to more technologies and new practices and innovative ways of doing things, he can learn more, and that can help him to grow his company. All right. So this led him to apply for logistics, masters in logistics management. And his primary interest is to understand the application of advanced strategies and AI innovations in logistics financing, transportation management, and supply chain optimization. He said that he saw immense potential for transformative advancement in addressing the complex demands for today's supply chains. And he's eager to contribute to this kind of field. All right. Now, he has a background in public administration. Then once you've done that first part, which is the most important, and it should be interesting, it should be informative, it should present you as someone who is prepared and someone who is interested in the field, someone who knows what is happening, then you can now begin to talk about yourself in the second paragraph. Talk about your past experience. I had my bachelor's in geophysics, I had my bachelor's in nursing, I had my bachelor's in microbiology, biochemistry. I gained these skills. So I think I can use public health writing to talk about that. So in the second paragraph, you say, I believe I am ready for this program. I obtained a Bachelor of Science in Public Health from Ezago University, Nigeria. During my undergraduate, I gained the experience in biochemistry, toxicology, organometallics, nuclear chemistry, and analytical chemistry. So you are trying to show that you have enough background, the prerequisites they need for that program, and you develop strong interest in environmental pollution when you took classes on Bam, 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 bam. You can also say maybe you interned in a particular company, and during your internship, you were exposed to spectrometer, to X-ray diffraction machines, to all those machines you guys use in diagnosis, or someone who is going for bioinformatics, you were exposed to use of R, geodatabases, Python programming, JavaScript, and those things helped you in managing data. You can also talk about your experience with Microsoft Access, all those database and SQL, all those skills you have, you begin to talk about them. Okay, so I say I have seen many health challenges resulting in my exposure backed by my childhood desire to understand health factor. I am motivated to go further in this particular program. Then you can now talk about your passion. Okay, you can now talk about your passion. That's this the third line. If you wish to talk about your passion. Now, the passion I'm talking about now is not your past passion. You've talked about your past passion in the beginning, right? Now we are talking about your passion in the program you want to do. For instance, you want to come to Georgia Southern to study a particular thing. Tell us about that particular thing in your third paragraph. I am passionate about the complex socioeconomic factors, public policy, and cultural practices that impact the health of individuals in underprivileged communities. So what you wanted to do is clear. I have a lifelong passion to do this, to help them, and I want to work on this kind of data. I want to work on public health policies and use emerging technologies to provide solutions to health challenges, okay? Then you can talk about the program. Let me use this as an example again. So you can see that during my undergraduate studies, against foundation in statistics, somebody who is going for something that has to do with quantitative courses, you can highlight that. If you took some biostatistics, some anatomy class, any class that relates to what you want to do. Okay, for instance, if I want to go and study, let's say, computational seismology, I'm going to talk about my understanding of computing. I'm going to talk about my mathematics. I've taken calculus class. I've taken linear algebra class. I've taken ordinary differential equations. So I can talk about those things that has to do with computational. All right. Now, but if I want to do, let's say I want to do marine science, I'm going to talk about biology. I'm going to talk about remote sensing. I'm going to talk about sedimentology. Okay, so someone who is going for community health, you can talk about, you've taken classes in sociology, you've taken classes in human behavior, or anything that relates with community health practices, collection of data and stuff like that. Maybe if you have experience with using questionnaire, you can administer questionnaire. You worked with a professor where you guys did some focus group discussion, you can write about it. If you did anything that has to do with the next thing you want to do, you can put that in your writing. I mean, to show and make yourself good. Another thing I want you guys to always infuse in your SOP is if you've done something that has to do with volunteering, if you volunteered, for instance, I know in Ghana they do it also, you graduated and you go for 1 year national service or 2 years national service. Please write about it, because that thing shows that you volunteered, and during that volunteering, you did something. So now, for this particular lady's sake, he said, after my graduation, I volunteered for a 1 year national service, and I got deployed to serve as a family nurse practitioner at Medina Polyclinic in Ghana, and then I worked with this, then I worked with this. You are just trying to sell yourself, okay? Do not be shy to sell yourself. Sell yourself so well, because if you don't sell yourself, nobody's going to do it for you. Okay? Nobody is going to do it for you. If you also look at this one, so this guy said throughout his undergraduate, he gained experience in this, in that, and in his penultimate year, he interned with United Nations Rural Water Supply Agency, and he worked with professionals, and this is what they did. And in his thesis, he conducted this, he did this kind of research. He graduated top 1% of his class. If you graduated top 1% of your class, please write it. If like anything that can give you an edge, write it. If you won any outstanding award, right? If you didn't win any, don't write it. Focus on those things that will give you an edge. If someone had it, let them write it. If you didn't have it, don't write it. Just keep quiet. Do not go there and start explaining, oh, I had to because I got belle. My boyfriend now left me in my 300 level. So I now carry the belle. You can only write that one in your personal statement. But if it is statement of purpose, we don't need to know what happened to you. Just be telling us, just keep telling them about the positive things. Okay, so focus on the positive. The only time you can now defend yourself is if they ask you about your negative, then you can explain what happened to you. But if nobody asks you, don't highlight your negative. Leave it there. If opening don't know if you guys understand it, but if your head they touch sometimes, don't write it. Don't tell them you have mood swing during classes. Nobody cares. All right. So focus on the positive. I think with this, we've gotten enough information on the background and how to start statements of purpose, which by the time you start writing, you write 1, you write 2, you write 3, you get better. And I can always tell you, please, if you're going for biostatistics, do not use biostatistics SOP for epidemiology. Do not use epidemiology SOP for bioinformatics. Do not use bioinformatics for mental health. Always create a new SOP. And I can also tell you, do not use the same SOP. Maybe it is epidemiology for Georgia Southern. You use the same for Boston. You use the same for this. No. Always look at the research interests of the professor you want to work with. Maybe in community health, Louisiana State University, you want to work with a professor who is interested in HIV spreading, while another professor in Georgia Southern or in Boston is working on telemedicine, on how telemedicine can help people with HIV. So you don't need to talk about the same way you discuss it for Louisiana State University. Now, telemedicine, you can also highlight your experiences in using telecommunication and focus group to get information from people. Okay, so always look at the research interest and the overall thing you are going to do in that program. Even though they are all epidemiology, the research interest varies. And once the research interest vary, please create a new SOP. This is the word of the Lord. Thank you.
Thanks be to God.
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation and education. I believe that we have questions that we want to ask. So please, the floor is open. Just make sure that you are in a quiet place or you're in a place that you can ask questions. If you cannot, you can text your question, you can put it in the chat, then Mr. Eze would answer that for you. So if you have any question, the floor is open. You can raise your hand and I will call you. So someone is asking, is SOP the same as essay? Mr. Eze, can you answer that for us?
Yeah, it's an essay, but you need to be more specific. Anything that has to do with writing, any form of writing is an essay. So it now depends on what they asked you to write. So it's just I think the question is like, hand is the same thing as the whole body. Hand is body, but it's a part of the body. Or if your hand is a human being, yeah, it is, but it doesn't represent everything essay. It is just a part of an essay and it has to be specific. Thank you.
Yeah. And to add to that, I think if you are asking, maybe some schools will tell you that you should answer this prompt. That is what you mean by essay. Well, SOP is different, way different from answering a prompt question that you are asked. So I think that should answer that. Anybody else with a question? Please ask questions. So this is a rare opportunity. The next time you go to him, you may have to pay to get the consultation you want. So this is a rare opportunity for you to ask questions. Do we have a format of writing an SOP like a CV? That is the next question.
On a general note, there is no formula. On a general note, there is no formula. Every school asks you to either write the way you please, but it's usually starts from introducing yourself, why you got interested, then talk about your skills, talk about the people you want to work with, the research, kind of research you want to do, your future goals, you know, but there's no particular way of writing it. As a rule of thumb, SOP should just be 2 pages. In some schools, they will ask you to make it just 1 page. In some application, like if you are going to Louisiana State, to Tulane University, they'll ask you to make it 350 words. So you can see that all these things we wrote here are modern. So if they ask you to put it in 350 words, then you need to be very, very good in writing so that you can capture everything you want to say within that 250 words. Or they can ask you to make it 500 words or 1 page. So if they give you explicit instructions on the number of pages, on the number of words, please make sure you follow that. But if they didn't, which in many occasions, many schools don't give, I will encourage you to keep it in 2 pages.
Yeah.
And that 2 pages should be something within 1.5 spacing. But if you made it 2 double spacing, it's also good, but make sure it's 2 pages is enough. I mean, if you are writing something important, you should end it in 2 pages, but let it be 1 page, and maybe 1.5 pages is good also. Is there a distinction between SOP and motivation letter? They are the same in many occasions, because motivation letter is asking you, what's your motive? Okay. So what made you interested? What do you want to do later? What's your career path? What's your long-term goal? They are all the same thing as statements of purpose.